This is the second video on personal public relations in big organizations. And we start with the fact that we have a fast emotive brain and a slow conceptual brain. And the way this works in practical reality, and therefore in big organizations, is people use the speed difference between these two brains we all have to manipulate us. And we can, in turn, use the speed difference to manipulate other people. The way it works is you send some sort of a strong emotive message to somebody, and then the next hour they are noticing what they notice is very much narrowed by the emotion you've given them, the emotional threat or competitive fear or boss subordination fear or whatever the message was that you gave them a strong emotion with that narrows what they notice, so that what the conscious slow brain is noticing is always being determined by unconscious messages that are emotive, that the emotional fast brain is receiving. And so we're never noticing the whole situation. We're always noticing smaller fragments caused by the way emotional messages that travel faster and unconsciously pre-focus us and get us to notice less than what's there. And older, smarter people and meaner people can really use this to make it so that we're almost never seeing the whole situation and all the opportunities that are there, because what we notice is being narrowed by emotional messages that are being sent to us. And it's really easy. It's just as much as reminding somebody of an uncomfortable moment or failure, or reminding them of an unyet made decision that may go against them, or anything that just is a strong emotion that ups anxiety or fear or anger or revenge or regret or embarrassment. And you're just in a very stylish, and you've seen people do this to you a lot. Older guys and ladies do this a lot to you. Bosses at the very beginnings of meetings will start it with a comment about something you did that didn't work out well publicly in front of your peers, and get you pre-focused the whole meeting and not noticing opportunities there and not noticing what's wrong with what the boss just said or other things that the boss just said. And so it becomes really important to notice this going on to you and undo this pre-narrowing of focus. First, by noticing that you were feeling good a minute ago and now you're feeling bad or angry or revengeful or something. Where did this strong emotional reaction come from in the situation? And if you can't trace back who gave you that message, probably something very slight and offhand casual looking by somebody quite deliberately doing this to you. And then undo that. Say, suppose I don't care about the boss's reaction ever. Suppose I've got a double the salary at a better company tomorrow, and I don't care about this boss. I don't care about this competitor. I don't care about this situation. How would I be feeling now? How would I be noticing then? Suppose I was a Buddhist and had Zazen practice this morning, 2 hours of meditation, and this whole idea of making money at a job was just a silly delusion. How would I be looking? What would I notice then? How would I feel now? What would I notice? What's interesting? What are chances? What can I do? And just be there as if the negative emotion didn't exist at all, as if it was just a feint in a football game to get you looking in the wrong direction. And then, keep track of who's sending you these messages, and then apply it back to them. Now, I don't want to do this because it gets negative evaluations on my videos when I do this, but I'm really good at this. And it's as easy as, I wonder if I should even tell this story, but when I first learned this, I practiced it on particular people I didn't like and who were in the way of my group at Xerox. And this is an upper-level VP, and this is before I became a VP. And so I wanted him made ineffective, and I wanted everyone to see him as out of control and against me in a public way at this meeting. And I needed to really set him off, and so that he sort of didn't like anything I said the rest of the meeting, and it became obvious to other people he was biased against me. And then I went up to people in a very puzzled way and said, God, George just doesn't seem to like anything I say, no matter what. What's going on with George? Can you help me? Thank you. That's nice. And just do that to 30 people so they all notice that George was biased against you. And it was really as simple as standing in the parking lot, seeing the kind of car he drove, and noticing people had told me that he drove a low red sports car, the kind of car that men's magazines tell you women like. And so I was drinking coffee, and I just, in my loud voice, I made a offhand comment about, I saw this article in Esquire the other day, and some men actually believe this crap, and they think women are going to sexually put forth for them if they drive a car that's low and red and powerful looking. Can you believe any adult male really goes for that stuff? Hard to believe there's anybody like that still alive in the world. Of course, this guy's turning red on the other side of the room, overreacting to everything I said for the next 3 hours. And, that's what I needed. And then I went around to 20 people and said, God, what's going on with me and George? He doesn't seem to like anything I say. Did I bother him or something? Project blow up? What happened? And it worked perfectly. And I've done it before, and it worked perfectly. But it's not a nice thing to do, and I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time. But people do it to me all the time, and it took me a while to notice it. And then when I did notice it, it was so breathtakingly effective how I immediately narrow focused, missed all the opportunity in the meeting. And, I did something bad last week. The boss did something dangerous to the whole company last week. And we're not talking about that. We're talking about my little peccadillo. And how did that happen? And it happened to me again and again for years until I figured it out. So that's one PR key. The second one is almost as big, and this is one of the biggest ones there is, which is almost everything that improves an organization makes it more feminine. And if you do something that makes a process more productive, that's because you made it more feminine. If you do something that makes the process more creative, that's because it made it more feminine. And the reason for that's so obvious that I really should stop here and give everybody 10 seconds intelligence test to see whether they have a brain or not. If you can't figure this out, you are hopelessly stupid, and you need to stop doing what you're doing and, clean shoes or something. Everything in the world has been designed by and run by males for centuries. And so, guess what? Most of the flaws in the world are from excesses of maleness. There are big hints like the fact that the Total Quality Program made groups horizontal in emphasis, supply chains, cross-departmental teams, and customer chains. That was to counter the verticality of male hormones and monkey crap. So organizations are so male that they constantly get everybody looking up instead of out at the customer. And you have to fight this all the time. Oh, but it's a great career advantage once you know that if you design a feminine meeting, which I did for General Motors, the managers will stand up and give you a standing ovation in the first 5 minutes of it, which we got on video. And this is at a time when my company was selling nothing to GM, and I became the first guy to make sales there other than the chairman, because I designed a feminine meeting where instead of showing slides about how great and powerful we were, I showed slides about how great and powerful GM was. And I was, EDS, and they were just astonished. It was the first time anyone at EDS had not defensively shown slides about how great EDS to try to impress the GM guys. And, the GM guys would tell you all at the back of the room, if you add 5 zeros, I'll be impressed with your tiny little speck in the ocean compared to how big we are. And so I did the opposite. I had a feminine meeting, and I stood up and I presented slides on how great GM was. And I got a standing ovation. It was the first time they heard a GM guy do that. And, an EDS guy do that. And the fact that I was showing them respect, got their respect. So this is a big deal in your PR. This is maybe the biggest deal I'm going to talk about here. Counter the excesses of maleness. And there's your road to how to make everything better. Then there's this big deal of, we've got all these things that they're supposed to, like leaders who don't make groups more social. Social web technologies like Facebook that when you measure it, and I have measured it, don't make groups more social. So, get a measure of the socialness of a group and see if a leader improves it or decreases it. And see if a leadership regime improves it or decreases it. And see whether Facebook and tools decrease it or increase it. And don't just follow what magazines say in their enthusiasm. Have a brain. Measure. You measure what? You measure. There are 8 things you measure. 3 of them are interests, needs, and capabilities of other people. Do I know them for the people I'm working with? And do I act on them for the people I'm working with? So that's the 2 dimensions of it. And there's 8 of them you measure. And I'm not going to tell you the other 5. You have to pay me for the other 5. But at least measure. And then if you do that, you find out that Facebook has absolutely no ability to increase the social index level of a group. There is one social web tool out there that does increase it a little bit. Corporations average 3% Boy scout troops average 7%, and high performance teams average 22%. And you can get up to about 5% with one of the social web tools, but it's a very low impact. And most leaders actually decrease it from 3 to 2. So it's not easy to make a group more social. And when you measure it and rigorously, how many interests, needs, and capabilities of the people that are around me I know, and how many of them do I act on? Try measuring that and then seeing whether your leaders are actually leading or not. So that's a big deal if you're going to have personal PR that's effective in the organization, measuring that for yourself and others. Foreign cap firms. Now this is really interesting. 45 years ago I went to Japan and found that they had no basic management systems at all. And I put that down to, well, it takes a while after the war, and some of them only came 5 years ago. Now here I am 45 years later, back in Japan, and they haven't changed a bit. None of them. It's really incredible. And senior local Japanese managers or Chinese managers are bitching about the same things. And then all the basic things that you need to manage a company are missing. There are no performance indicators, no KPIs. There's no career system for the local nation employees. So the Japanese don't know what to do next, and the Chinese don't know what to do next. There's no place for them to go. The foreign executives are hoarding information out of insecurity, so they share nothing with the local executives, which makes them look utterly stupid to the local employees of the company they're working at. So they get absolutely no effort. It's amazing, all this diligent Japanese producing nothing for these foreign firms because the leaders don't share information and don't help people succeed. So once you know this, that foreign cap firms basically are viewed for a century as a no-cost, no-community sales office where all we do is essentially hire 100 salesmen and get all of us $100 million, $500 million of sales with no cost. It's a great business deal, and headquarters is so reluctant because of the money to give up that deal and that image that they never do manage to get around to installing, realizing they got 2,000 people here in this building, and it's getting a little big to treat it like a sales office only, and they need career paths, and they need some kind of decent management, they need information shared, they need a sense of direction, and they have none of that. They've had none of that for 50 years. So, you know, I'm trying to get one of my students and I to go out and just go to every foreign cap firm in Beijing, Shanghai, and Tokyo, and install what Peter Drucker said in the 1920s German firms needed. Managing yourself as mind extensions. And this is the fact that schools educate brains, not minds. And it's not tools in our brain that make us smart, it's tools outside of our brains that make us smart. The doorway into our brain is very, very narrow, very hard to get information into our brains. And then once we get it there, our brains are very poorly indexed. And so what did you learn last month? What did you learn last year? It'll take us a week to answer that question. We don't have an index so that we can actually tell you. And so to then have companies hire smart brains, well, that's really useful because, you know, within 5 years, all that stuff's going to be out of date. So you'd be much better off hiring motivated people who smartly learn rather than hiring people who've already so-called learned a lot. And then you ought to be evaluating how educated are the tools outside of their brains. How good is their file system? How good are their cognitive friends who perform mental functions for them? How quickly can they answer a question tomorrow morning rather than right now? And that's who you should be hiring. Somebody with a smart brain extension system, not with a smart brain. Developing, and this is a big deal for personal PR in organizations. You know, one of the rules I was first taught by my first manager at EDS is go to GM and look for the people with beautiful bodies and their secretaries, and those are the wastes of space. Those are the VPs who are wastes of space, and don't waste time talking to them. And go to the guys whose secretaries are not particularly pretty, and especially the ones whose secretaries look like they could, you know, eat a shark, scare the hell out of you. Those are effective people because they delegate to these women, or usually in GM those women. And but these women are, you know, as terrifying as any VP ever was, and they get stuff done. And so you got two people working the same power, as opposed to these guys who hire a decadent, pretty little girl, and have one person, well, not even one, having half a person getting work done. Developing your constituency of success. I mean, you're going to be president or more because every time a good thing happened to your career, you had 20 to 50 people that you gave things to. Consulting jobs in your new job, or equipment from your new job, or events they could participate in from your new job. Every time you had a new job or a better promotion, you gave stuff to this constituency. And you do that for years, they end up wanting you to have good jobs and helping you find them, helping you be promoted to CEO because there's 100 people there who got benefits last time you were promoted. Super selling principles and cases. Super selling is the selling that you do to your teenage daughter about who to date. Talk about hard sales. Or to your young kid to get him to read a book or do homework. Hard sales. Or to your wife about moving to another city. Hard sales. Or to you about changing your diet. Very, very hard sales. And so you develop your sales skills in those realms, and then the business stuff, you're a natural. And I mean, more than a natural, you just are amazing in business sales terms.